Okay, guys. Hello, 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 hello. I hope my light is good. I hope you guys are good. We have a lot to unpack. Um, let's just pray. Father, we bless your name and we just thank you for the new transition in our country, a peaceful transition of democracy. We just want to ask you, Lord, to give us wisdom and understanding. We undergird our president in the name of Jesus, his family, his cabinets, and everyone that's going to be working. We pray that this next 4 years, he is going to carry on in your will and for your sake for this country. In Jesus' name, amen. So, we have a lot to unpack, and we're still going to be unpacking it. We're going to be unpacking this for a little while, for some time, probably for the next couple of months. Those immigration attorneys, immigration experts, lawmakers, and everyone are just on edge trying to see how executive orders affect the process of immigration. Now, I must say that every time there's a new administration, this is not new. This is not a new thing for the United States because immigration law is governed by Congress. It's governed by it's governed by the federal government. And so every time a new president comes on board, he can make what they call executive orders across the board in areas that affect the lives of the American citizens or just America, period. And one of the areas that most presidents make orders are things that they promised during their elections, during their campaign. And one of the things that President Trump did promise is he's going to attack the immigration and things that has been happening, both good and bad for us. But unfortunately, it's going to affect some people negatively and it's going to affect some people positively. So as the orders are unfolding, our job is to sort of unpack it. I am Kema Gwe Tharunka from the Tharunka Law Offices. I am a founding partner of the Tharunka Law Offices with Mr. Tharunka. We have 3 offices across the United States, in Texas, in Maryland, and in Virginia. I should have had my technician savvy enough to put the numbers on, but I give the number. I started doing this all by myself, so I didn't have my girls who usually help me set everything up. So I'm solo, but if y'all see me, that means I did something right because I'm not tech savvy too much. But the Virginia office is located at 12656 Lake Ridge Drive in Woodbridge, Virginia. And that phone number is area code 571-285-5242. That's our central location. So if you call that number, you very much would get any of the offices. And the Maryland offices is located in Wheaton, which is part of Silver Spring, Maryland. And then the Texas office is in Irving, Texas. But again, if you call that number 571-285-5242, you very much would get any of the office connected. So if you live in Texas and you call that number, you'll still be able to connect to the Texas office, even though you're calling a Virginia number. And if you live in Maryland and you call that number, you very much will be able to get in touch with those people in Maryland. So don't fret. And so we have been in business for over 20 years. We should consider ourselves expert now. I am in removal defense. Mr. Tharunka also is a removal defense attorney, as well as practice before USCIS. The difference is USCIS is mainly when you're filing your applications, your forms, and things like that, consular process, and everything goes to USCIS. And those people who do the removal defense are a lot litigating before court, before the executive office of the immigration review, which is called EOIR. But now I know all of that. You guys are not interested in that. You just want to know how President Trump's administration will affect you. I will probably be doing a series of this because when they sign these executive orders, it takes some time to effect. Sometimes it effect right away because there are no challenges to them, and some of them they have some legal challenges, and then the courts have to hear them, whether it is the federal courts or the Supreme Court. But you have groups like the ALAs, ACLU, these human rights groups that may find that some of the policy may be inhumane, especially as it relates to asylums and things like that. So they might challenge it. They will challenge it. And I know some of these executive orders will be challenged. And so, oh, my mic fell. So guys, what am I going to do? Is this a mishap, but you just keep rolling with it, right? Oh, snap. I think I did it right. I don't know. Okay. See, that's why it's good to have your technical people. Okay. Let's go down the orders and then we unpack some of it so that you will understand. And then, but let me say this, if you need extra explanation, you think you fall in that category where these orders are going to affect you, please feel free to contact any one of our offices so that we can have a bit of an extended consultation with you, and we can begin to unpack how your situation. And stay tuned because we will be having a free seminar, and I'll talk about it to the end of this. And so the first place that Trump has launched an executive order is at the southern border of Mexico. He wants to shut that border down or beef up its security so that people will not cross through the Mexican border. And it's going to be a lot of work to be done there because he's going to have to probably organize a lot more security, hire a lot more officers. We don't know if the government has budget for that, but that's what's going to probably happen. The border has never been secured. When I say never, they've tried. All administrations have tried, but to get the kind of security that will stop or put a halt to illegal entry, I don't know any administration that have accomplished that. It's been happening for decades, and I don't know any administration. Trump will have mass deportations. Now, we who are in the removal defense, it doesn't mean that they just going to come grab you and deport you. Now, if you had previously an order of removal, which means you've been deported before, excuse me, my leg is, I have to kind of move my leg, so you have to excuse me. Now, if you have had an order of removal before, which means that a court of competent jurisdiction have ordered you removed, then very much so, if they launch these very mass raids, they can come to your house, pick you up. You don't need to go through the judicial process, which means get placed in removal proceedings and then file a relief to remain here. If you had an order removal before, very much, if they're going to do a mass raid, you got to worry. And that's one of the ways to probably effectuate this mass deportation is people, even if you have a green card, but you have criminal convictions. I remember under President Obama and Trump, those two presidents, I remember being extremely busy because you had people who had minor drug possessions charges, petty theft, whatever it was, DUIs and things like that. And next thing you know, I remember a client who he was home getting ready for work. Next thing you know, knock, knock, knock. They took him in. He was in detention. Now we had to file a motion for bond. And some of these crimes in some of these states make you a mandatory detainee, which means you have to stay in detention until your case is over. And that could take up to 5, 6, 7 months in detention. Otherwise, You may be able to be eligible for bond and then you bond out. But that is if you have a green card. Don't think that you have a permanent residency, you're secured. You're not secured. If you had a permanent residence and you have a conviction, whether felony, repeated misdemeanors, you got to be worried. And that's why I tell people, if you're planning on staying in this country and you do have criminal convictions, at least more than 5 years before you file your citizenship, go ahead and file it, because if anything affects immigration, you're not secured with a conviction, especially those that are felonious. And so I'm hearing, he wants to implement a mass deportation. Now, if you're already in court proceedings, don't worry, because they can't just come and take you home. You got to go through the process. So those of you who are already in court proceedings, in immigration court, waiting for your case, maybe your case has been set to like next year or something, don't worry. They're not going to come take you home because you're already in the process. I'm speaking about those people who have criminal convictions. And even with a green card, if they're doing mass deportation, you can get processed, but they're not just going to come and take you back with a green card. They're going to very much put you in immigration court process with your green card. But that's something I'm sure you are not financially, it's not in your financial budget to hire an attorney to pay $10,000 to $15,000, $20,000 to come and defend you because you decided you were not going to file for your citizenship. All right. So again, think about that. File your citizenship before everything kind of go haywire. If you have a conviction and you do not have green card, permanent residence, you need to worry a bit, because that's another place that I saw between Obama and Trump administration, where you could be driving and they stop you, driving without license, running a light or something, and then they stop you. The police now, because Trump intends to work with the local officers, local police between 2008, 2009, thereabout. It was very rampant. They will, when they stop you for traffic violations, they can ask you, and that means they will have to racially profile you. That's the only way you get to that point, is racial. You saw a lot of Hispanics suffering from that racial profiling, because they anticipated or thought they crossed the border, so they stopped them maybe for running a red light or some traffic violation, and here they were stopping them. They stopped them and then proceeded to act. You don't, you get arrested. Usually, if you don't have any prior criminal convictions and it's just traffic stuff, very much you could and they release you and they get placed into, you might be eligible for bond. So that's the good news if that happens. So you don't have to stay there. The only way you will stay in detention if you committed a crime that is considered a felony, and then at that point you are not eligible for bond if the crime is an aggravated felony, and that which does not compare to the federal law or whatever. So it can get quite complicated. And so we will see that some of these local police officers or police departments will be working probably with the federal government if they institute this concept of mass deportation. And so we can also see that mass deportation may come into the raids where they are going to, some cities have a safe haven or a safe sanctuary cities, wherein like New York or California, where they will create at churches these safe sanctuaries for undocumented immigrants to protect them from these mass raids. They will show up to jobs. If they know like someone is running a sweatshop somewhere, they can come and raid that entire place and take everybody that they feel is undocumented. So we might see these mass raids coming back. I will not be surprised that they are going to show up again. So we're gearing up for that. But if you do have a permanent residence, you don't have any criminal convictions, doesn't mean that they're just going to come knock to your door because you're not a citizen and then they're going to take you in. So that's not going to happen unless you decide to act funny. Those of y'all who like to beat up your wives and beat up your children, and when you come in this country from another country, everybody knows their rights. So you go ahead and lay your hands on that woman. She called the police. They coming to get you. You ain't got papers. Keep your hands to yourself. Because I saw a lot of that, especially in the Hispanic community. And then it was a rise of it in the African community. Even though the African community, it was not a whole lot of it, but it could have been a rise of it. So be careful with that. If you're prone to committing crimes, this is the time to take a retirement from it, because it can very much land you in immigration court if you are not documented in this country. And so we are pushing forward. There's what they call the reinstating the remaining Mexico for asylum seekers. That's going to be a hard hitter. That one has immediately taken. Now under Joe Biden, before Joe came, people were staying in Mexico to wait for their immigration papers. So what happened is they created this thing through the app, the CBP app, so that, and you saw a lot of Ghanaians coming through Mexico, showing themselves to the authorities in Mexico, presenting themselves, and then filling out the CBP application and going through the process. You get interview, you get clearance there. If they feel like your story is good enough, then they will process you into this country, give you a court date, and you have an opportunity to present your case before the immigration judge. There was a wave of Ghanaians coming because in Ghana, their prior president in parliament, there was a passage of law that actually really hit the LGBT community in Ghana really hard, making the very nature of their sexuality a crime. And so you saw a wave of Ghanaians fleeing from Ghana and coming and requesting asylum here in the United States. And I saw that wave happen in the last 2-3 years. And they will come through, they go through almost 6 countries, like Panama, Peru, all these countries, end up in Mexico, fill out the CBP application, present themselves, they tell their story, and then, or portions of it, you get processed into the country, because it shows that you more likely than not will be tortured or persecuted if you are returned back to your country. And so, especially if you're seeking asylum based on the particular social group of being a homosexual in Ghana, it was very, very heavy, especially when the law was passed in parliament in Ghana. So we saw that a lot. But now, what Trump is going to do, and then under Joe Biden, that was it was kind of on a case basis. You still had to do that very heavily, but now Trump is saying, if in fact you come to Mexico, and in fact that whole program is now suspended. Like, you can't, everybody who had interviews through the CBP app, it was canceled. So nobody is coming here asking for asylum. Let's just put it that way. Nobody. Now the DOJ will look at that on a case-to-case basis. But if you fill out the application and you're waiting for your interview, I'm sure you have seen by now your interview was canceled. Whether indefinitely or not, we don't know. Sometimes when these things get challenged, legally challenged, they come back. And now those people who are coming before, when you come and fill out the app and you fill in the app, they can process you and let you come in the country. Now Trump said, even if on a case-by-case basis, you do make a compelling case for asylum, you will not come in this country. You will stay in Mexico. They got to work that out. You stay in Mexico. I've had few people who've been stuck in Mexico. You will stay in Mexico until your case has been adjudicated, which means your case has been decided. You will stay in Mexico, and so he's also suspending the refugee resettlement. A lot of people, especially like Liberians, countries who have had war torn situation. Your country been in a civil war, or your country tomorrow, for example, your country erupts into a civil war. A lot of people that are displaced resettle in other countries. During our civil war from Liberia, a lot of Liberians resettled here in the United States. You have a program before you come, and they give you all these documents, and you come as refugees, through which you are able to adjust your status, blah, blah, blah. Now Trump is suspending that for at least 4 months. He wants to get his Stephen Miller, who is his Homeland Security advisor, and other people from the DOJ. They're going to look into that, and within 4 months, they're going to reevaluate it. If it's something that they're going to re-implement, they're going to do that. If not, it probably is going to be going on the 90-day increments and see if it is going to be beneficial. Now, even though it's suspended, any progress, even though it's suspended, but if your case is compelling and affects national security, national interest, very much so, they'll look at it, and they could allow you to come in as a refugee. And a lot of Afghanistan is going to be affected by this, because there's a lot of unrest going on in the Middle East. A lot of Middle Eastern countries will be affected by this, because a lot of them come in that posture. It's the immigration court is flooded with about almost 4 million cases backlog. So you have these judges. And another thing that Trump is going to do, let me go back to the mass deportation, is hopefully they're going to hire more judges. Maybe I'll be a judge. Who knows? Maybe I'll be a judge. But they'll hire more judges, because these cases got to go. Because now you're going to see a surge of a lot of cases coming to the immigration court. COVID plays a huge backlog, but but with the new WebEx, where you don't have to physically go to court. I remember days where I would go to court and spend all day, because I have 3 to 5, 6 master hearings going from floor to floor, running from one court to the other. But now they've made it pretty easy. You can have a lot of cases during the day and just jump from WebEx to WebEx, like Zoom, and stuff like that. So yeah, again, if you have applications pending, adjustment of status application pending, you have applications generally pending, I wouldn't worry too much about your application. They're not going to come and say, well, you got to go. You have an application pending. They've taken your money. They're supposed to process that. So long you meet the requirements, they're not going to say, okay, your application is pending, we're just going to let you go. Now, while your application pending, you decide to go commit a crime, feel bad for you. Because that can land you in the immigration proceedings, and that can land you back through removal order. Now, another hot area that it's definitely going to be challenged is the ending of the birthright to citizenship. A lot of you guys, people will come, and America is one of the few very large or major countries that still allows that to happen. Canada, UK, some of those major big countries, they don't. I mean, if you are undocumented, you're not a citizen of this country, and you come here just to have your child or children. You see, a lot of people did that over decades. A lot of people did that. A lot of people have U.S. citizen children. They are not citizens of the United States, but they come here as a visitor at the time they're supposed to give birth. And I saw under Biden, well, it was trickling since Obama and Trump and Biden, that has been sort of diminishing a bit, where they were even penalizing women who were coming here, having children for that purpose, leaving, coming back. They've been stopping people, returning people back, not allowing you to come back. I remember a client of mine, her child was a U.S. citizen. They were traveling. They were coming back. They stopped her. It says the child come in. I don't care, have somebody pick the child up, but you got to go back. Because there were evidence or whatever evidence to believe. I think she owed some hospital bills, hospital records. They are very, 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 very smart. So I couldn't find a word, but they will make sure they document everything. So you came here, had children, did not pay the hospital bill, and left. They'll catch up to you. Some of you that didn't catch up to you, some of you fell through the cracks. I'm not saying that it happens all the time, but if you did that, you might get caught because they caught some people and they didn't let them come back into the country for doing that. But the birthright to citizenship, Trump wants to get rid of. The reason off the bat that's going to be about a little bit more difficult is because it is protected by the 14th Amendment, which says that if you were born here on U.S. soil, by whomever, you're a U.S. citizen. You do have people who become citizen and then their children wherever become naturalized. I'm not sure how that weaves into this, but we do have a lot of cases where people are are natural born citizens, but then their children were born outside of the United States. I didn't hear if that was addressed, but we will keep you abreast of if that affects those people currently. That doesn't mean that everybody who derives citizenship by this, like you were born here, naturally born here, if you are already here and that happens, don't worry, you're not going to get stripped away. It's going to be henceforth, which means moving forward. But that is one of the orders that has not been effected yet because you have to undo it through the Constitution. You can't just he wants to do an executive order for it, but he's going to have to convene a constitutional committee. They're going to have to do a constitutional amendment, which can take some time. But I don't think a lot of even his own people are going to be on board with that. That's just my opinion. I don't think that it's that you're really going now into the heart of our Constitution and want to undo something that has been on the books for so many decades. It's been since 1898. There was a case called Wong Kim Ark case. Wong Kim Ark case. So that case been around since 1898. So it's not something you can just wave your pen and then it'll happen. So for those of you who were born here in the United States and your mother or father is not a citizen, your mother came and had you here, your mother is not even here, but you're here, don't worry, your citizenship is intact. If somehow he is successful in this, then it's moving forward. So those of you who want to come here and have your children, the children will not be United States citizen. And again, this is one of the only major countries in the world that is still doing that. Most of the major countries in the world do not allow that to happen. So we'll see. That one we will see how it unfolds. If you fall in that category, don't worry your head. Don't lose your sleep. It's not going to happen like the way the resettlement, the border raids and all that stuff is going to happen immediately. That's not going to happen. You need to seek the advice of an immigration attorney right away if you have doubts about what's happening with your case. Because over the next few days, weeks, months, we will see more orders pass. We will see more definition of these orders. Some attorneys knew that this was going to happen before he even took office. We will see more and more of this. More conversation is going to be had about this. Don't try to tackle immigration by yourself. I know it is form driven. In fact, believe in April of last year rather, all the fees of the forms went up. So now a typical adjustment of status where a husband filing for a wife or wife filing for husband, children filing for parent, you're looking at spending over $3,000 plus. It used to be like 1,000 and some change. At first, it used to be like 900 and something. And now it's went up to 1,400 when it went up to 1,700. Now, if you wanted to do your 485, your I-130s, 485 is your application for your green card. I-130 is the visa. You must have a visa in order to adjust. So either you get your self-adjusting or you're getting it through someone who's filing for you. They file the I-130 for you if it's a family relative. If it's religious or self-adjustment or through employment, you will be filing either I-129 or the I-140s. 360s are adjusters. I'm not going to get too much into this. Is not about giving you the meat. I'm going to have a seminar breaking down these forms and have people ask questions and stuff. We want to have an interactive so that, how to remove conditions. We want for you to be educated. The thing about our African community, I used to do this where every summer I used to host a free seminar. I would bring people from DOJ. I would bring people from immigration. Y'all don't show up. Scared? I don't know, but y'all don't show up. People, if you know your enemy, you know how to fight. If you know what the law is, you know how to protect yourself. But the problem is, I don't know if it's fear, because that's one of the weapons the enemy uses anyway to hold you down, is fear. So you're sitting there and things are happening and you just have no clue because you don't show interest, or you show interest but you're scared. So this year is going to be the year to want to know what's happening with immigration. If you, especially these churches that have a lot of immigrants or non-immigrants or people that are illegal, you might want to, you might want to get to know what's going on. Get an immigration attorney. We used to, Mr. Thoronka and I used to go to these churches, talk about these things for free, and people have consultations with us, but they just took it for granted. And now here we are facing these times. And I'm not saying I'm blaming the administration, because quite frankly, we are busy. The administration wants to curtail the immigration process, make it more sleeker, make it more for people who needs to come, and he has his reasons. So what we're going to do is just, when they effect the laws, we just have to follow it. That's what it is. And so reading the laws, because some people think they're smart, they're engineers, they're doctors, or they did some kind of psychology, so they can go pick up the form and do the forms. Or they can just read the law and say, no, you're not lawyers. You need to talk to people who are experts. You need to talk to people. I've had some people go pay the consultation fee. Now, see, I am a veteran attorney, what they would consider, because I've been practicing for almost 20 years now. I can charge up to $400 per hour to talk to me. But I kept my consultation at $200 because I wanted it to be affordable, because I realized some people just wanted to sit down and have a chat about their immigration cases or for their families. I've had people come to the office in Maryland and just to know what's happening so that they can advise their families who are filing for another family member from back home and stuff. And so find the money, go see an expert and talk to them. Don't try to figure this out by yourself, because one, you just be sitting there, one day the door be knocking, they're coming for you. But again, they're not just going to do it if you don't have those people who have criminal convictions. Those are the ones I would say worry a little bit. But if you don't have, your nose is clean, you don't defraud, you're not lying here and there saying you're a citizen, this, that, and the other, I wouldn't worry. Because they're going to have to start with the most dangerous people first if they are going to do a raid. Now, under Trump's first administration, he had a ban with Nigerians, especially those who were immigrating and filing an immigrant visas even for their families. We saw that happen. Now, after him, they had to institute what they call the visa validity so that they can process these things. So you see a huge backlog with a lot of Nigerians. Whether he's going to do that again, we don't know. The reason why, especially countries like Sierra Leone, Liberia, the West African countries, because there were certain things that they wanted you to adhere to. Your country was not adhering. So in retaliation, and I will use that word because that's just what it is. For example, Liberians, when you are facing deportation, you are ordered removed, and then they go to your embassy here, your consulate here, to process your travel papers. We had a lot of these embassies that were stalling, or they would never do it. And under Zyvidus, it's a case law, they can't hold you because you're not serving a time. You're just being held so that you can go home. And so after some time, 6 months or so, 9 months to a year, they got to release you. They can't just hold you indefinitely. They got to release you because you're not serving the time. So that was causing a lot of problems for the administrations, especially the financially. So they had to do something to kind of get your attention. Okay, if you don't want to cooperate with us, we're not going to let your people come in. We're going to put a hold. And they can do that. There was a lot of fraudulent things, a lot of that was happening, especially on the DV lottery in some of the West African countries. You saw a lot of people obtaining your diversity lottery visas by fraud. They go to these internet cafes, people, they fill out these applications. Oh, I don't have children. And you know you got about 5 kids. And you say, I don't have children, thinking they're not going to know. Not knowing before you had already done a visitor visa application, maybe 3, 5, 6, 10 years prior, and you listed you had a child then, and now here you are 10 years later, you win the lottery, and someone has advised you wrongly and said, well, you know, if you have kids, they're not going to let you go. Or if you are 50 years old, they're not going to let you go, so drop your age. And here you go. Without talking to a lawyer, you do what it is. And with those visa diversity visas applications, once you apply and you're doing the DS 160, you're doing the application for the visa, you got to be accurate. Even if you misspell your name by mistake, they will deny it. That's what they will do, because it's very strict. On your B1, B2s, they're very strict. If you make one slight mistake, you almost always don't have a chance to go explain. And I'm not saying some don't. Like, you know, you get the favor of God that can fall on some people. So even if you make a mistake, they will, you know, you might have some nice officers at the consulates who will talk to you and make you make the corrections. I mean, minor corrections, yes. I'm not saying that they're so strict that even if you make a little mistake that they're not going to do it. But don't lie on your applications. And what I'm saying is seek the advice of lawyers that, you know, let your families, if your families are here, let them talk to lawyers on your behalf if you're going to be migrating to the United States. It's very, very, very important. Spend that $150 or $200 so that you can know what's happening. So if these go through the list again and see any country who has some oppositions or who are not complying with the immigration laws or who are not complying with whatever they want, especially with their consulates in their country, yeah, you're going to be on a chopping board. That's what happened with the Nigerians. And then they brought it back. What Biden did, he brought it back. And now, you know, they're migrating again. But I can really see that B1, B2s are just going to be dragging along again, because if you're trying to curtail in the immigration process, if you're trying to curtail the immigration process, one of the places that you're going to go is the B1, B2, because people come here and they don't go back. They come as visitors and they stay. So I can very much see that now. They may not tell you that's not going to go away because that's a visa. But what they're going to do is send an internal memorandum to their different embassies, you know, or their ambassadors. This is what y'all need to do. So he's not going to sign an executive order for that. So don't let them come in. But what they can do is send an internal memo. So you will see a trend of them saying no. So when you're doing your B1, B2 visas application, you got to be on point. On point. You have people, ministers who come here and they deny them to come here and minister for programs and come back. So we're going to be doing a seminar the end of February and the end of March, where you really get to ask some deep to all of your questions. I may come back again either this week or next week as I'm hearing what's happening, to talk about it a bit and maybe make it a little bit interactive. But like I said, I mean, recap for now, he is reinstating the remaining in Mexico, where if you came to present yourself in Mexico using the CBP app, You're not going to come in this country. You will stay in Mexico so that your case can be adjudicated here. He is going to beef up on the southern border, which that one is going to cost money, so it's going to take some time. He has canceled all of the CBP app. Those who had applications, boom, is done. You're not coming. But yet then still, it is still going to be on a case-by-case basis. The refugee resettlement has been suspended. So if your country is in war, unless you make some compelling case, you may not come, because that's suspended for the next 4 months. And hopefully they will revisit it in 4 months and they will say, oh, you know what, let's bring it back, or let's not. But now your case got to be really compelling, to prove a lot in asylum. When you're seeking asylum, you're going to have an opportunity to make a full case before an immigration judge or before an officer through what they call the credible fear. But what they're looking for when you go to that border is, number one, have you been persecuted? Have you been harmed? Have you been harmed? And the harm in our Fourth Circuit does not have to be physical. A harm could be words. I will kill you. Somebody tell me I'm in a country, and a government official threatens to kill me, maybe because I'm an advocate for women's rights or something, and I'm one of those people who just every day you hear me, advocating against the government for how women are treated. Then, and some officer or the government threatened to kill me. Yeah, I don't need to show physical harm in our circuit, which is the Fourth Circuit, where all the courts, the federal courts in this area, these Virginia, the East Coast area, they're all set in the Fourth Circuit, or Massachusetts, I think it's third. I'm not sure. So if you go, you have to show you've been harmed. And if you are returned back, it's more likely than not you will be harmed. And there's no internal relocation. In other words, if you send me back and I was in Accra, Ghana, I can't even move to Kumasi. I'll still get harmed. I mean, you have to show that you still will be harmed. For example, those people who are coming as gays or from the LGBT, anywhere in Ghana you go, that law is following you. So you can move from Ghana to Kumasi, Accra to Kumasi, ever in Ghana, and still it's still a likelihood you can get harmed because of orientation. And so you gotta have to prove, I was harmed, and then I was harmed because of one of the 6 enumerated grounds for asylum. Either my political views, either my nationality, either because I'm my religion, and so forth and so forth. One of the biggest and more broader area of asylum that you can have so many areas in it is called the particular social group. Particular social group of people. For example, the LGBT falls in the particular social group. For example, advocates against the government, so long that a group of people similarly situated to you have been persecuted either by the government, acquiesced by the government, or by a private actor that the government is unwilling and unable to protect you from. For example, in some of the South American countries, back then, especially countries like El Salvador, they have to show that the government could not control the gangs, and therefore the gang violence. So even though the government are not gangs, but they couldn't control them. And even if you report a gang violence against you to them, to a police officer, you may not be protected. Now, El Salvador has made some huge strides. They have done a lot to protect their citizens from gang violence. They are arresting those gangs, the gangs and members and stuff like that. So now that asylum application based on gang violence from El Salvador is getting weaker and weaker, just because the government is making some strides. Now it's been 44 minutes. I've been running my mouth about this thing. I just wanted to bring forth what is looming in the air. So those people who filing refugee to the U.S. Refugee applications, USRAP is called. It's been suspended. Those people at the border looking to come in through the CBP app. That's been canceled, and we should be expecting some mass deportations. Again, if you are not a citizen, you have a green card, permanent resident, and you have not filed for citizenship, and you do have a criminal conviction, it's going to get worse. It's always been. It's not something that if you did, it's just every administration look at it more aggressively than others. They're going to come. They're going to come. So listen, I'm going to pause here and keep my eyes to the streets and bring more updates for you. Our office are in Woodbridge, Virginia. We are also in Wheaton, Maryland, and in Irving, Texas. If you call 571-285-5242, make an appointment. Speak to I or Mr. Tharanka, your expert immigration attorneys. You might get further answer into your personal cases. I will be having a seminar at the ending of February and the end of March where you can ask live questions about cases, and we will answer those cases appropriately. But I will urge you, if you're having questions and concerns, call the office, go visit the office, make an appointment so that you can get clarity. Those that are in court currently, don't worry, your case will be adjudicated. They're going to hire more judges so that they can move these cases fast, because a typical asylum cases are taking 4 years, 3 to 4 years. But they're going to try to expedite those so that they can move it along. But yeah, that's where we are. I am your humble servant again, Kay McGuire Tharanka. You see Reverend up there. It's supposed to be ESQ, but I'm using the live stream from my ministry. I'm also a pastor. So, I'm standing in that dual role. But I've seen the miracles of God in these situations. Mr. Tharanka have had cases where unusual people have gone through lawyers, and they're going to him, and God has used him to be able to get them their papers. And I know some of you have testimonies of being in the immigration process for decades or months or years, and then coming to Tharanka Law, and it's been fixed. Not because we are so good in our own human self, but there are sometimes God just ready to bless you, and he just uses us. We both are strong in our faith, and we pray a lot on these cases. So I think God just uses us so that you can be blessed. So until maybe the ending of this week, today's Tuesday, maybe by Friday or next week, I will come back again and update you on what policies have been sticking. If I miss any of the policies that you heard or something that I haven't covered, please inbox me. Go to my social medias, Kayma Tharanka, my Facebook page, Kayma Tharanka, my ministry, Kayma Ministries, or Instagram, or message me, Kayma Tharanka, and then say, hey, you didn't cover this part, and then trust me, I'll reach out to you, leave your number, and then we can take it from there. God bless you all. I hope, we can see one another under good circumstances. So take care. Remember, 571-285-5242. With that note, Got to go eat. Thank you. How do I do this? Live. There we go.